Yo, welcome, family, to another edition of the No-Go Zone with your good brother, Professor Carlton Jones. I am that dude, that boy, North Philly in the house. Yes, Professor Carlton Jones. So what's up, family? I want to thank everybody for pulling up, for those of you who are here already, and anybody that might watch the replay. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get back into the swing of things. So, I got things popping on both Facebook and YouTube tonight because we need to rebuild that YouTube audience. All right. So, family, if you are on the Facebook joint, chill back, fall back, watch the show and kick back. You know what I'm saying? Participate if you will. But I would really appreciate it if you, would climb on over, come on over, you know what I'm saying? And come see what YouTube has to offer, because I'm trying to rebuild the channel. As you know, YouTube took down my other channel, because apparently a brother was putting too much smoke out there. Well, guess what? I am not taking my foot off the pedal. I'm going to keep it moving forward. So, and that's what it is. So I want to thank everybody for pulling up tonight. I want to thank, my baby, as always, Mila Renee, up in the house. I want to thank her for pulling up as she greets everybody in the chat. You know what I'm saying? And hey, beautiful. My beautiful woman. And man, she been putting out some videos lately. Whoo, let me tell y'all something, man. If I wasn't her man, I'd be her man. I'm trying to tell y'all something. And we'll go check my baby out on her YouTube channel, Moments with Mila. I want to shout out my good brother, Dr. Smoy Swaggart, in the building. Doc Swag, what's good, baby? Appreciate you pulling up, brother. Appreciate you pulling up, man. My brother for a long time, man. We've been pulling through. You know what I mean? My brother from down D.C. All right. See, our sister Naki is in the building. Naki T is in the building. Appreciate you, sis. And we know Sister Naki's in the building. Her husband's in the building. Sister Naki, we got to get your husband on board. Tell him to hit that subscribe button and join the chat from time to time. Just say hello. You know what I'm saying? Because we got to keep it popping up in here. You know what I'm saying? And Frankie, we love you too, sis. Appreciate you, sis. Yes. And we spread the love around. It's funny, right? Because Mila receives a lot of critique from her friends, family, people of that nature, because they're like, how in the hell are you with a man that hates Black women so much? And, it's funny because if you really think about it, and I wrote about this in my book, by the way, 2020 Through the Eyes of a Social Media Revolutionary. I wrote about this in my book. Let me see if I can find the page. Wow. How did I just, find the page? I'm going to put the page to the camera. I know, it's going to be hard to see a lot. I'm trying to get the shit right. Forgive me, y'all, if I can get the angle right on this shit. But let me read y'all the page. All right. So on page 90, I read, and this is true to the point. I raised Black women to a higher standard. Excuse me. Let me just say that again. Let me repeat it again. I raised Black women to a standard high above all other women. So when sisters equate themselves to all other women in the water, it waters down their essence. Hashtag know your worth. See, I hold Black women to a high standard. I hold Black people to a high standard. So to the mere fact that people would even think that I have a hatred towards Black women, I just got to ask you, cite your sources. You know what I'm saying? I was raised with nothing but beautiful Black women. I have a very strong relationship with my sister, all the women in my family. You know what I'm saying? Cousins, aunts, uncles, my grandmother, who we just laid to rest, a few months ago. I've had great relationships with all the women in my family. So, and then friends and family and people who know me in person. But, and I'm not doing that to sort of like, qualify any of the things I say on this channel. I'm saying that for the perspective of we have to raise the standard in terms of black men and black women in terms of how we get down. Now, we have no problem with talking about raising the standards and for which black men need to step into the table. But as Shahrazad Ali said, we have never examined the black woman's role in the destruction of the black community and the effects that slavery had on her. I don't think there's anything wrong with examining those roles. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting anybody under the microscope. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that the people who pander to black women really show black women that they don't have respect for them, really show black women that they don't think that black women can actually handle an adult conversation, an adult critique. So they want to play with child gloves and they want to play these games and tell black women all the flowery things that they want to hear and things of that nature, but they never tell sisters areas that they can improve in. And I find that to be very disingenuous. And I also think they're setting the black women for a trap. They're going to create this situation where black women are isolated from everybody. And then they're going to create a situation for which not only is they're going to be isolated, but they're going to fall into this place where there's going to be nobody to protect them. And once they're unprotected, as they keep going out talking about being unprotected, as you've been seeing, the scavengers and the wolves are going to come for them. So what I'm saying, the things that I say, is because I have a high esteem for black women, and I think black women can handle the conversation. As we have seen throughout the progression of this particular show, the channel that I had previous to this, which was growing at a pretty good clip, by the way, and it was promoted by mostly black women. So I'm asking everybody on the chat right now to please send this program to your family and friends. Send it to other people, help us build the channel and at the same time, have a conversation that's been lacking in our community for some time. All right. So let me adjust my camera a little bit, got a little bit of the background popping. There we go. All right. Like the Wizard of Oz. I can't let y'all see what's behind the curtain. Sister Rose Onassis is in the building. And Sister Rose is saying, oh, yeah, Sister Rose. Let me see. I'll put this on the screen for y'all. So Sister Miller told me about that when we used to work together. And I watched your first video. Really, y'all just compliment each other perfectly. People who say that don't know Sis Miller. Exactly. They really don't. Y'all think I'm hard? You think on the status of our people? My baby will tell you she don't have a filter. It be times I'd be like, yo, baby, chill. Thank you, Sister Rose. And I know Sister Rose is watching. Please, Sister Rose, just like Sister Naki, I'm going to need you to get your husband back on the sticks so we can, hit that subscribe button and tell him to, for him to share with his male friends too. As brothers, we have to start supporting these conversations more often, because we like to talk about in our little huddled corners, like the water cooler at work, or the corner desk, or we'll come into somebody's cubicle or somebody's office and have these conversations, but we're afraid to be attached to these conversations because brothers have been getting canceled. Well, bruh, let me tell y'all something. Those days are over. All right. Those days are over. Black men getting canceled, black men getting put in their place, black men being hushed and shushed, black men being ridiculed with sign language. Tonight's show is really going to dig into that whole concept. You know what I'm saying? It's oh, you say he's in Nigeria? All right, cool. Well, tell him safe travels. We send them safe travels, and we hope that taking care of his family and things of that nature. That's what's up. As a good son should. We wish him safe travels, sis. Appreciate you. So one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about some things that if you follow Dr. Hasan Johnson, he's a brother who also has a YouTube channel, and he's a doctor and a college professor out in I believe it's Fresno State University. So, and it's out in California, and he has developed, a very powerful platform in regards to understanding the journey of Black men as we deal with misandry, anti-hatred towards Black males, and just identifying the yellow journalism in regards to how it paints stories of Black men being abusive, Black men being, predators in their own communities and things of that nature, and really citing stories, studies, and statistics that that shows that those stories are nothing more than the same types of propaganda that's been used by the white supremacist press and its outfits since the advent of the printing press in this particular country. All right. So he came up with a term called Black Masculinist terms. And this term, Black Masculinist terms, is like, it speaks to, and I don't want to get this wrong, so if he sees this, I hope I got this right. It speaks to times when Black men have a wake-up call. Something happens where Black men have a wake-up call. And, one of those wake-up calls was when Ice Cube took his agenda for Black America to Fox Soul and I forgot what was the name of that damn show? The Queens of something. You can tell I don't watch it, right? Which is something else. Let me write that down. That's something else I want to get into later on. About not watching that content, things of that nature. I'm writing it down, y'all, because I need to come back to this. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. And so the Queens of Soul or the Queens of something, I forget the name of that shit. But basically those women were on the show talking about if you don't have a separate agenda for Black women, then he needs to go back to the drawing board. And it was, his agenda was treated with such dismay and such disrespect by so many people, and the Black media is pretty much predominantly, ran by the LGBTQ community and feminists. All seem to have agendas against heterosexual masculine males. All right. And so that was like a Black masculinist turn where Black men was like, oh, okay, we see how we see how you see us. And then the next Black masculinist term was the outrageous way that so many Black women were celebrating the death of Kevin Samuels. And when we saw that, we recognized that this party was way too big to be aimed and focused at one man. We recognized as Black men that this was the underlying boiling level of contempt that many sisters have for Black men in America. And so as we saw it, they weren't just celebrating the death of Kevin Samuels. They were celebrating the death of Black men, of a Black man, of a Black man who represented, a specific point in time where he wasn't going to allow sign language to dictate, our reaction, our behavior. And basically, Kevin Samuels told Black men to grab your nuts. And that's what we did. So those are Black masculinist terms. One of the things that we see, what's going on, Joe? Glad you was able to join us tonight, bruh. Appreciate you. One of the things that we noticed is that in this particular time, Black men have started to move in a different direction, move differently. And, I was trying to, be the canary in the coal mine. You know what I'm saying? That's the role I played. I was trying to tell sisters, give you a warning, like, yo, if you keep going down this track of treating Black men with misandry, anti-Black male hatred, if you keep going down this track of trying to shame Black men, if you keep going down this track of trying to be disrespectful to Black men, to try to mother Black men, as we're about to see in a few minutes, it's going to come back to bite you. And unfortunately, a lot of sisters didn't take heed. One in particular, we have a race going on right now in Georgia, right? Political race going on.
With the social work, hold on. Social.
Sorry about that. Something else. It's amazing how YouTube works. Shit just turns on by itself. So I want to show y'all, an interesting interview with Tiffany Cross. And Tiffany Cross talks about, she's talking about Stacey Abrams and Stacey Abrams' pitch to Black men, because Stacey Abrams lost the last gubernatorial election in Georgia in 2018. And she's basically stating that without the help of Black men, she won't be able to win. And so I want you to, and I'm just put up there now. Where's the banner? Because I need to put the fair use banner up, because YouTube like to tear my shit down. Everybody else get to play whole freaking interviews and stuff. So let me show y'all what Tiffany Cross said, and we're going to come right back. Now I might interrupt a few times, but we're going to come right back because we have a lot to talk about tonight. All right.
The midterm elections coming up. I want to turn to Georgia, which is on everyone's minds because less than 2 months out from the midterms. And at the center of the conversation among many, Black men. That rarely happens. And I want to center Black men today. Right now, we could be looking at a split ticket. Senator Raphael Warnock is leading in his race against Herschel Walker, but Stacey Abrams is behind Governor Kemp. Now, Abrams says if Black men vote for her, she'll win. But the math ain't really math in there. And I know Roland has a lot of thoughts about that. I want to bring into the conversation Cliff Albright. He's the co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund. And Terrence Woodbury, he's a Democratic pollster and CEO and founding partner of Hitch Strategies. Cliff, I do want to start with you since you're on ground there in Georgia. We'll get to the debate between Walker and Warnock in a second. But just being on ground there, Cliff, what do you make of that? Like, are Black men large in number enough to decide this race for Stacey Abrams? Or is this just a headline that's, more yellow journalism and sensationalism than truth?
Yeah, good morning, Tiffany. Great to be here with you. Obviously, Black males, Black men voters make up enough of a block where we can be a part of what the difference is. And we got to keep in mind, we're talking about a state where in the presidential election in 20, the difference was famously those 11,700 votes that Trump was trying to find someplace. So in a situation like that, yeah, Black men as a voting bloc can be a big part of the equation. And, whether or not we come out, Black men in Georgia come out and support Stacey at the same rate that Black women do is a legitimate question. Now certainly Black men aren't going to bear the brunt of what happens in this election on their own, no more than Black women should bear the brunt of it. Some white folks gonna have to wake up and actually do the right thing in the state if they wanted to move forward. But I think that it is smart to raise this issue because at the end of the day, and we hate to admit it, but there is some number of Black men that will just refuse to vote. It's the sexism, it's the patriarchy that just refuse to vote for a woman, whether that
Sorry, y'all. Sorry, y'all. I need to get a mouse. So I want to stop it right there because this again, and I don't know who this brother is in particular, but these are the panderers that I talk about. And in regards to Black men being misogynist and in terms of who they're going to vote for, who they're not going to vote for, I think it's ridiculous to think that Black men don't have the autonomy to make these decisions for ourselves. Just as the sisters on Fox Soul's Queens of something, I forget the name of the damn show. Just the same way they have the right to tell Ice Cube that there needs to be an agenda specifically for Black women. I think that as Black men, we're starting to recognize that we need to also have an agenda that's specifically for Black men and not one that's steeped in, dealing with prison reform, not one that's steeped in, just talking about reform with family courts and child support laws, although those are important, I think we also need to have, stipulations concerning the economic outcomes, how they affect Black men in our community. And if you're not going to be poignant enough to speak to us and create an agenda that addresses our issues, then why should we vote for you? Voting is a right, and abstaining to vote is also a right. And this speaks to something that I was speaking to earlier, but I'm going to let this finish because Tiffany Cross also has something that she's going to speak on, and we need to address that. Hey, Sister Pretty P, I see you out there, sis, and I appreciate you pulling up. So I'm going to let this play on a little more because I want y'all to hear what else is going on.
That woman is Stacey Abrams, or whether it was Hillary Clinton in 16. And that's an issue that we have to address. Again, that's not the majority of us. It's not a plurality of us, but we have to address that, and we have to be willing to call that out and call it what it is.
Yeah. Well, Terrence, you're on ground doing work, doing polling there. And so I think Cliff raises a really good point, which I want to dig into. But Terrence, I want to ask you just for the math part, because I don't know that it's fair to lay this at the feet of Black men and say, yeah, you guys cost us the election, because Black men overwhelmingly vote Democratic. And so as a pollster, I'm curious your take on this conversation around Black male voters in Georgia.
That's right, Tiffany. Over 80% of Black men still vote for the Democratic Party. So this whole notion that Black men need to be the ones called out, the irony just never, the irony of these particular concepts never escapes me. Nobody ever calls out Latino men or Latinos who are turning to Republicans, to the Republican Party at a rate like double the clip of what they did just 10 years ago. You have 10 million more Latinos in America than Black people, yet and still Black men seem to carry the burden for the failures of the Democratic Party to provide a platform, a forum, and policies that actually, support the needs and the issues of Black men. And until these issues are addressed, you're going to continue to see Black men leaving the electoral process. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that's what it is. But I'm going to let this interview keep playing because this is going to come to a point, and this is the point that I want to get to.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tiffany. The truth is that the Democratic support gap between men and women is not unique to Black voters. There's a gender gap amongst all voters where men are more likely to vote conservative. Now, when you look at the math here, Stacey Abrams lost in 2018 by 55,000 votes. Had Black men voted for Stacey Abrams at the same rate as Black women, she would have had 120,000 more votes. So there is math there. The challenge is that since 2018, Republicans have doubled down on their efforts, coordinated and expensive investments targeting Black men, targeting men of color. And in 2020, we saw Donald Trump double his margins amongst Black men in Georgia, a difference of 370,000 votes. The gap between Black men and Black women was the difference of 370,000 votes in Georgia. And so we do have to close that gap. And while that is not unique to Black men, and we see that gap amongst all men of color, the difference with Black men is that they were Democratic voters. These were Obama voters. And some would argue that they were only Obama voters. They were never, in fact, Democratic voters. And that is where Democrats have work to do to prove that since 2020, they have made progress on the issues that matter most to Black men, and that they have a plan for Black men moving forward.
All right. So Cliff mentioned Hillary Clinton. Terrence talked about Obama. We have to take this thing back a decade. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why am I wearing this shirt? It's my alpha shirt. First of all, we vote, but here's why. Black men are the second most loyal voting bloc of the Democratic Party. Who's number one? Black women. Mm-hmm. So let's just be real clear who Black men are voting for. In 2012, There was a 9-point gap between black men and black women, Obama, Romney. So people try to make this out to be about totally sexism. That's not true. We're two men running and black men. Black men were not happy with Obama. They felt he should have done more because on the issue of economics, on criminal justice, and no things along those lines. And so what then happens? You go to 16, now to 13.
What do you mean, why, Tiffany? Why black men? I mean, shit. During the Obama experience, as I call it, black men didn't gain much. You know, politically speaking, black men were thrown to the back as the Democratic Party made an unholy alliance with our women, black women, to promote black women, to put black women in places like Supreme Court justices and federal courts all across the country. There was the whole celebration of the 7 circuit judges that were brought into the state of Georgia just during the Obama administration. You know, we were celebrating the birth of the new era for black women. And while I'm all in support of black women achieving and celebrating, let's not forget how you got there. You got there on the neck, stepping on the necks of black men. You got there forsaking black men. You got there accepting the tokenism of white supremacy, you know, being this new shining darlings as you watch the men around you suffer, and some of you even celebrated in the suffering. So, you know, let's be clear about the fact that as black men, we have become astutely aware, been having these conversations for years about, about moving on from the voting, block until we can create our own voting block, and focusing on building ourselves up to become, a demographic worth fighting, that's capable of fighting off the other demographics in the world. And unfortunately, our women are in the other groups of demographics that we have to contend with. And, I wish that we could work together, but, unfortunately, there's been, revealed a very selfish nature by too many of our women to join in. Too many of our women want to take on leadership and ownership. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Point gap. You go to 20, now it expands. But here's a race people ignore, and Terrence knows this as well. Tom Tillis, the architect of voter suppression in North Carolina, was getting around 18% as well. Why? Because Democrats were ignoring that constituency. Black women also organized and mobilized to force the Democratic Party to pay more attention to them. In many cases, black men within the party have not actually done that. So what you're seeing are black men who are saying, you're not paying attention to me. You're ignoring what's happening when it comes to economics. You're ignoring me when it comes to the critical issues. And so what the Democratic Party has not done is create a specific strategy to target those individuals, because it comes down to numbers. Warnock beat Kelly Loeffler by less than 100,000 votes. And so you're the Democratic Party and you're just ignoring these numbers. What did Terrence just say? You are ignoring the potential to win. You should be trying to get every vote. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it out here because someone has to say it. The fundamental problem with the Democratic Party is that white strategists are controlling the money, are controlling the strategy.
Yeah.
Yes, African Americans are having input, but if you're trying to win, you better listen to black people. You better fund these initiatives. Otherwise, you're going to lose. And that gap is going to widen.
And fund candidates. Instead of meddling around in Republican elections, trying to put one over the other because you think they're easier to beat. Fund candidates.
But also off-year strategies.
Right.
You can't come talk to black men in the middle of September. Election is November. And I called it. They should have been doing this in January after Biden got inaugurated to build up a program so when elections come, now you properly prep.
Yeah, and invest in black media, brother. We know that.
Black-owned media, not black-targeted.
Black-owned media.
Absolutely.
Cliff, listen, I think Roland made a really legitimate point here. I will say, a lot of black men sometimes feel like they're ignored or they're put down, particularly sometimes even by black women in the media. So this is not that. But I do hear Roland's point that felt ignored. But you feel ignored, and then you go over to the other side. The oppressed feel oppressed. So then you go and try to align with the oppressor. So I'm not putting black men down, but sometimes it's like, well, some of you Kevin Samuels, following Tariq Nasheed quoting people. Please look at the truth and see what's happening and get in line with some of the Black women. Is majority, like he said, vote Democrat, but that margin of people who can be plucked away from your people and go advance policies that harm your people, I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
And there you have it. What's wrong with why? What's the issue as to in terms of why Black men are walking away? Not, why are let's sit down and have a roundtable discussion so that we can make sure that everybody's needs are met. No, get in line, Black men. And this is why Stacey Abrams is going to lose Georgia. Because Stacey Abrams is not going to put forth an agenda. She hadn't time. She's been prancing around, having town hall meetings with Black men and talking about issues like abortion. Not speaking to any issues that are pertinent to Black men, and Black men were getting up and walking out of these sessions. And it's not just Black men. She's struggling with the entire Black demographic of Georgia, from what I understand. But see, Tiffany Cross has this whole concept, and the reason why she brought up Tariq Nasheed and Kevin Samuel's name is because Tiffany Cross is still butthurt that she's one of these sisters that unfortunately chose her career over family. And her career has been mediocre at best. And then unfortunately for her, during the pandemic, I think she's 43 years old now, but during the pandemic, Tiffany Cross had to have a surgery, she had to have a procedure because she was dealing with fibroids and her whole uterus was removed. This is public knowledge. She put this out there. And ironically speaking, she didn't even have the money or the insurance coverage to pay for that. And I don't, and I'm not saying that to sort of like to prance or dance on her, or that issue, because we all go through it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't, I'm not trying to, say that with any sort of disdain for her. I don't have any disdain for the sister whatsoever, but I find it ironic that she's doing one of those moves that, like when the white woman told LeBron James to just shut up and dribble when he started speaking to politics and Black Lives Matter, and he started talking about, the issues concerning the deaths and the murders of Trayvon Martin and the young brothers that came at the hands of white vigilantes and police officers and things of that nature. You see, sisters like Tiffany Cross feel as though, that she should have some type of authoritative, whip cracking effect when it comes to Black men. And we find that a lot of sisters share that sentiment. A lot of sisters think that the buck stops with them. And see, this isn't the only incident we've had concerning this. This was light compared to something I'm going to show you that happened just a few days ago. All right. Something that happened just a few days ago concerning basketball. It's concerning the NBA head coach Ime Udoka. I believe that's his name. I don't want to mess the brother's name up. But I want y'all to hear something that happened with Stephen A. Smith and one of his cohorts over at ESPN. That what you just saw was MSNBC, and Tiffany Cross is showing MSNBC. So I want y'all to pay attention to this, because this is also, heroin.
Why
fair use.
Nobody's talking about that. But I want the Boston Celtics to explain that. Because Sham and our very own Adrian Wojnarowski publicized this a couple of days ago, and no shade on them. They did their damn job and did it well, by the way. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that this is stuff that happens. The fact that it's been publicized is a problem for me. It's an HR issue for me. Now, if you email Udoka, you ain't going there. Because if you tried to sue or anything like that, you'll never get another job in the NBA again. Let's call it what it is, okay? Mm-hmm. We understand the situation that he's in. And according to my sources, and Woj can confirm this better than me, he was given a choice. Fired, resign, or take the extent or take the suspension. My point is this, and I said this yesterday, Jay. Fire him or keep him. One or the other. Why would you keep him but suspend him? Allow it to get leaked out what transpired. And so now there's a whole bunch of victims here. And by the way, let's also understand this female victims here. There was some woman that all over social media and beyond, people were saying it was her. It wasn't even her. Okay? She was put on Front Street. You got people, and a wonderful young lady who's doing a great job in Boston, Amina Smith, spoke out against this publicly on television yesterday in Boston when she was saying, you don't know the facts. We don't know what's going on. And people's names just being thrown out in the public because people are speculating as to who.
Now, just to be clear, and for those of you who don't know, there was a scandal that's been released publicly by the Boston Celtics concerning their head coach, Ime Udoka, who coached his team to the NBA Finals last year. He is also supposedly, I believe, either engaged or married to Nia Long. And I understand that that particular angle is why we saw so much of this popping up on our timelines and so many people gloating about the fact that this brother dropped the bag. I'm not here to defend this brother, you know what I'm saying, in regards to what's happening with him and his intermarital, relationship with Nia Long. One of the things that I think we do far too much of, I think we all believe that we should have access to the lives of these people and their private lives. So while Stephen A. Smith is speaking on this particular issue, the Ime Udoka part, we're going to talk about that a little later, but not from the perspective of critique in regard to that situation. Because like I said, that's a matter that should not have ever been public. It should have been a situation that was held privately in respect to the fact that he was in a marriage or committed relationship with Nia Long. I feel like, out of all the people, she probably suffered the most damage in this particular situation just because of the public humiliation that might have occurred. I'm not going to get into the actual aspects of whether or not, my concern in regards to, his brother's relationship with Nia Long. My issue is what happens in a few seconds here.
He was. Excuse me. That didn't happen in a variety of places that I won't name with people who were let go because they engaged in salacious activity within the organization, albeit consensual. Okay? And so now people are going to look, well, who is this woman? Was she married? Was she single? What's the situation there? We're going to ask about Ime Udoka and what his personal life is. I'm just simply saying you fire the individual, okay? He violated an organizational policy that we found intolerable. Let people speculate all they want. He could have signed an NDA, moved on. And then he would have had an opportunity to get another job. But by suspending him, so you retain his rights, okay? Even though you're still going to pay him, I'm sure you're going to pay him something. We don't know if he's getting paid his full salary. He's won in his first year. He took them to the finals. That means after this season, it's made national news. For something that I promise you, no one will refute.
Okay, so hold tight, y'all. This video ends just short of where I wanted to go. I really want to get to the point where he had the confrontation with the sideline reporter who also has a show on ESPN, Malika Andrews. And that's the part I want to get to because she also, had a run-in with Kendrick Perkins concerning this particular matter. So, I'm just trying to get to that point of the interview because there's another part of this where she calls into the show and she has words for Stephen A. Smith. So that's the part of the interview I'm trying to get to, y'all. And, unfortunately, a lot of people, when you put stuff up like this, they put a lot of clickbait out there. And one of the things that happens is you try to find the link on your own. You know what I'm saying? See, I'm witnessing this in live time because I don't have unfortunately I don't have I don't always have the clip ready for you. So my apologies for that, y'all. But I think I might be on it right here. Hold on.
What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we did this.
Okay, here we go. This is the part right here where the exchange happened between Malika Andrews, who, by the way, is 27 years old. And I just want to put that out there. Stephen A. Smith is 55, I believe. I believe Stephen A. Smith is 55. So he's twice her age. I just want y'all to understand this when y'all hear this exchange. All right. So we're going to play.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just want to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. That was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But the Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate with.
And so I want to stop it right there, because at the beginning, I don't know if y'all caught it. First and foremost, she called into his show, and when she called into his show, she hit him with a very dismissive but very disrespectful tone of voice, and the way she responded to him was almost as if she was finger wagging in his face. You know what I'm saying? And this is the stuff I'm talking about when I say that this whole mommying of the whole entire community. I used to deal with young ladies in the 8th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade who felt as though they had the authority to put me in my place. Mila can vouch for that, because she had been to the school several times throughout the last school year when I was helping out a program for one of our charter schools here in Philadelphia. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls who I had to constantly remind or ask questions like, who do you think you're talking to? And the fact that I had to remind these 8th grade, 6th and 7th grade and 8th grade girls that their disrespect wouldn't be tolerated was astonishing to me. I saw the men in the building trying to negotiate respect from these little children. And this is where you get this particular thing right now where, Malika Andrews feels as though she can call into Stephen A. Smith's show and wave her finger in his face and tell him to stop it on his own show. Let us continue.
Within for everybody involved, and I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization. And I think that is something that was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
And once again, this whole notion that the buck stops here in our community in terms of the level of disrespect that is uttered towards the men. And see, this is why, the caption of this particular show, the thumbnail is and speaking to, you can't check me, boo. You know what I'm saying? And this is in regards to, that whole montage from I don't know whether it was Basketball Wives or things of that nature when the sister was talking about who's going to check me, boo, who's going to check me. Well, see, here's one of those things where we're flipping the script on this here, and as brothers, we're often used to being checked by our women, and and what you're about to see in the next few minutes is something that's starting to trend in a different direction.
First of all, let me be very clear. I don't appreciate where you're going with that. I'm not blaming anybody but Ime Udoka. He deserves, the fact of the matter is, I've said he deserved to be fired if they were going to fire him. If you're not going to fire him, then don't fire him. My issue is all of this being publicized. The point that I'm trying to make is just like you're not mentioning. Excuse me. I listened to you. You're the one telling me to stop on my show. It ain't happening. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I've already said he deserves to be fired, or he deserves to be there and handle it internally and privately. If you're not going to handle it privately, if you're going to publicize it in that fashion, then obviously it provokes everybody wanting to know, okay, well, who are the parties involved? When you have Amina Smith in Boston and other women pointing out the fact that there were women who were wrongly implicated in all of this, it's a disservice to them. I didn't come out with the report about a consensual relationship. I didn't come out with the report ahead of time leaking that they were going to suspend him for the year. They did that. And my point is, considering how pervasive this kind of stuff has existed in professional sports for many years, my whole point is that, excuse me, make sure that you handle it in the same fashion it has always been handled. You could have fired him, and then we could have speculated till the cows come home, but he's gone. But to keep him there, keep him employed, but in the same breath, suspend him for a year, then also that year is indefinite. That is the issue that I have. Nobody's trying to protect Ime Udoka, and certainly nobody is trying to protect, is to excoriate the women involved or anything like that. I'm talking about how things of this matter are usually handled from an HR perspective, from an organizational perspective. That is not consistent with what we have seen throughout the years. That is the only point that I was trying to make. I'm not trying to attack anybody. And if anybody deserves to be attacked, it's Ime Udoka for putting himself in this position. I've made that very clear. I'm just talking about, you got owners and everybody else. They know the kind of stuff that's going on. You didn't say anything about anybody else. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about them. They didn't say anything about everybody else all the other times this stuff has happened. But now when it comes to him, it's all over the place. That is my issue. That is my only issue.
I appreciate that clarification. And I think that getting back to Molly's initial question, that is what stood out to me from the press.
And we're going to stop it there because, as you saw, unfortunately, and listen, I hate doing qualifiers. I'm not the biggest fan of Stephen A. Smith. He has definitely said some shit that is going and that's made me give him a side eye, and a lot of other people are giving Stephen A. the side eye and some other things. But one of the things you saw there is that he had to check her. He had to check her because her behavior was out of order. And he had to bring her back to reality. And he even danced off some of the things he was standing on, right? In regards to, if this was a consensual relationship, then more than one person broke the violations of the organization, in regards to stepping out in that particular situation. But yeah, he had to check her. And, you're starting to see a lot more of that in regards, because black men are starting to recognize their worth and their value. And even a black man such as Stephen A. Smith is starting to do that, because Stephen A. Smith was getting bullied by a lot of women at ESPN. You know, for the last few years, he was made the issue to make a public apology, you know, you know what I'm saying, on air and suspended, you know what I'm saying, for, you know, conflict in that in terms of, it was a white woman at that particular time. I can't remember her name because she's no longer in the business, but you know, she basically violated public policy, ESPN policy, by going after another member of their media group. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on that we need to unpack here. But the biggest thing we really need to unpack is the fact that, you know, this particular issue, this particular story, you know, these stories, these things, these are black masculinist terms, as Dr. Hasan Johnson speaks of. And these are terms in which you see black men are starting to make everybody in the world accountable to them, their issues, their concerns, well, excuse me, our issues, our concerns, because I'm a black man, but, you know, I was speaking in third person. In regards to how we are being dealt with and how we're being received in the world in terms of what we're going to take and what we're going to tolerate. And I find it interesting that a lot of the things you're starting to see lately is you're starting to see the reactions from a lot of people in specifically in our community. I refer to them as the sisterhood. You know, this collection of feminist and anti-black misandrists that team to gather some steam. We see a lot of them now, you know, doing a lot of barking, doing a lot of pleas, and still trying to use sign language to put black men in their place. But what they're finding is there's a large echo in these caverns that black men used to be in. These bullpens that black men used to be in, waiting for the next, you know, soiree of insults and guilt and you know, shame and tactics so that we can be whipped back into shape. The brothers aren't there. The brothers are leaving. The brothers are choosing to abstain. The brothers, especially the brothers that these sisters are interested in, are all talking about buying passports and going to other countries. These particular brothers are no longer paying attention to or listening to, you know, the critiques, the disrespect that's coming their way. And this is something that, you know, I wanted to get to in regard. This is why I wrote this down. Black men are walking away quietly. They're not even around for debate or discussion. Black men are fed up. And sisters, I warned you that this day would come. I warned you that if you don't change your behavior, if you don't get out of your stubborn ways, if you don't stop treating black men with disregard, that eventually they're just going to leave. Why? Because I was in those conversations. I can never forget the fact that when I was talking to a sister, this is over well, you know, about a year and a half ago, talking to a sister that I had known for years. And she was talking about, well, you know, women talk. And I said, well, men talk too. And it kind of stunned her when I said that to her, because she was coming from this very entitled and arrogant place of, women shaming men and women, you know, passing around dirty and nasty rumors about men. And the fact that I said, well, you know, men are talking too. And when I alluded to some of the things we were talking about, let's just put it like that. That was our last exchange over a year and a half ago. Blew her mind. You know, because I kept saying, brothers are done. Brothers are moving on. And that's what's happening. I wasn't the one out there bragging and boasting about it. As I said before, I'm a canary in the coal mine. I was letting you know that we have mined and tunneled too deep. There's no oxygen here. Get out of the tunnel. There's nothing but methane gas going on down here. This shit'll kill you. And while not literally, but in terms of relationships, in terms of what men were willing to tolerate and deal with, over. And now it's too late. And I spoke about this last week. Sisters, unfortunately, far too many of you do not have foresight. And because your decisions are emotionally based and they're not, you don't utilize logic, and your logic is based on your emotions, a lot of times you don't think about the long-term repercussions of what you do in the moment, in the heat of the moment of an exchange. You don't think about the long-term repercussions of when you're angry and you have vitriol and you spew that vitriol, and the only way a sister could, by the way. You don't realize that brothers are saying, shit, why should I sit around here and absorb this abuse where I can go somewhere else when I'm celebrated? And I'm not the one endorsing these relationships, with women who are not of our hue or women who are not from our diaspora. But as I said on page 90, I'm going to go to page 90 again. 2020 through the eyes of a social media revolutionary. I raised Black women to a standard high above all other women. So when sisters equate themselves to all other women, it waters down their essence. Know your worth. This is coming from a place of love, Black women. Bro, there's no link tonight. There's no link tonight. We're about to shut this joint down. But before we shut this down, I want y'all to think about something. Why do you think that there was such an uproar about what happened in Boston? Why do you think that is? I'm not going to play or read the article. It's just not enough time. But I want to show y'all something. This came out the same week as the scandal in Boston. That's right. That's right. Brett Favre's most memorable stat may be the $8 million meant for the poor. That's right. You have Brett Favre, who was the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings throughout his time in the NFL, who has always come off to me as a smug, arrogant asshole. But now you have him embattled, in a scandal that robbed, Mississippi, the poorest state in America, robbed them of welfare benefits that were supposed to go to welfare recipients in that state. All for what, you might ask? He embezzled this money to help his former alma mater, Southern Mississippi University, build a volleyball stadium because his daughter wants to go to Southern Mississippi and she plays volleyball. He, along with the former governor of the state, along with Brett DiBiase, son of Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man from the WWE or WWF, did this in the state where they're still facing the worst water crisis in the history of this country, Jackson, Mississippi. You might recall we did a story about what was going on with the Mississippi water crisis in Jackson. We actually have boots on the ground, and we can actually tell you. We're not telling you from the media or anywhere else. The conditions in Jackson are still bad. People have black water coming out of their water pipes, and the water is so bad that it stains the toilets every time they flush it. And in the midst of this time, this particular scandal was going on. And this is mostly why you're hearing about the head coach of a basketball team in terms of his indiscretions, for which I will not defend, instead of dealing with the fact that you had one of America's heroes who's enshrined in Canton in the NFL Hall of Fame out there robbing the poorest people. And let me be clear, Mississippi, economically speaking, is the poorest state in the country. Jackson, Mississippi, which going under this water crisis, over 70% of Jacksonville's population of 150,000 people are Black. Many of them live in the poorest areas of the city. Many of them have not received what they needed in terms of, government support, in terms of fixing up the infrastructure. There's been a political war waged against the mayor because he is descendant of a freedom fighter for Black people. And so we have seen how the political games are being played down there. And we also understand now one of the reasons why ESPN, Fox Sports, and CBS Sports, and NBC Sports are all focusing on the situation going on in Boston and not the situation going on in Mississippi. This would be a terribly bad look for a man to be stealing money that could have been used to improve an infrastructure that allowed for an entire city to be submerged and turned into a modern day desert. So this is what, and we ought to pay attention to this because, we've had a similar situation in the past. And I'm going to speak to that now. Anybody know who this man is? This man is Gary Webb. Gary Webb was the reporter for the San Jose Mercury Times in California, who broke the news about the CIA Nicaraguan war and Iran-Contra war. He broke that story. Everybody knows about Freeway Ricky Ross. Well, he was the one who made Freeway Ricky Ross an international name. And he broke the story about how the CIA plotted to bring crack cocaine into the Black community to fund wars in Nicaragua and also to buy missiles from Iran. And one of the things that happened to him, to his story, is when the when Congress was able to release the story about what happened and blow the doors off of this, 4 days later, an interesting thing developed politically speaking. A young lady by the name of Monica Lewinsky was having a press conference talking about semen stains on a blue dress she was wearing. Anybody remember that story? We all remember that story. And because we remember that story, we forgot this story. And by the way, Gary Webb, in seclusion from his family because of how dangerous things were getting and the threats he was getting from agency sources, and not missionaries, mercenaries. Gary Webb was found in a motel room, and the coroner's report read that he had committed suicide. But here's the interesting thing about Gary Webb's suicide. Gary Webb was reportedly shot not once, but twice in his head. So apparently he shot himself and the first time didn't take. So he had to shoot himself again. So I'm saying is new dogs, old tricks. And so, family, with that said, I want to thank everybody for pulling up tonight. I really do. I want you all to have a good night's rest. And as you see, I already pulled up, so it's already time to do this. Peace and power, family. Appreciate you all. Asha.